comes to me for advice, and sometimes he'll stop by my stream or shoot me a message on Discord, and I'll be like, hey, you're supposed to be up there with them, you know, but you lazy. And I think he knows that, and I think he's been putting work to prove me wrong and to prove other people wrong that he can work hard and get to that level, because he has what it takes. And I think that him joining Team Roddy will do wonders for him, because he has the chance to represent Roddy, who I think is a mentor to him as well, on more fronts than just gaming, if I had to guess, because of just the type of kid that he's shown to be. I am incredibly biased here in my rooting for Goblin, but yeah, here he is. Representing, of course, Team Roddy.
Team Roddy. And his opponent in the Northwest, a multi-time champion. You should know him if you follow StarCraft. From Team Liquid, he is MaNa.
It doesn't matter when you followed StarCraft, you know this guy.
He's been part of the scene for as long as ever. If I had to pick my favorite MaNa moment, it would be when he did, I don't know if it was around when he won in Krakow, but he had a really funny stream where he ended up, I think, like packing tape like all over his face for raising money for something or something like that. But it was, I just remember the memes of that. I think he was like cannon rushing people while he was like half blind and still winning in EU GM. So just a funny guy. He's got a lot of personality, you know. MaNa's always been one of those players that I think it's entertaining to have a chat with as much as he is to watch him play StarCraft. A long-standing veteran.
Yeah, he's been in Team Liquid for a long while as well. And like you said, I think he's going to be a difficult opponent to take down, especially in tournament play. I think he's particularly strong. He is a veteran, and it shows. And we're going to see him scout as veterans often do, and he's going to find the proxy.
Oh boy. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's one of those scary moments for a second where you kind of go near the edge, but you don't quite check it directly. And MaNa, I'm sure he's lost enough games to know that checking that furthest extent is worth it. And it does help because it allows him to see that Stargate. So
yeah, it might have popped on the mini map as well right away and corrected his course. The Goblin will find the probe. That's something. I mean, I'm not sure what you do here. Okay, Phoenix, very rotty.
Yeah, he's building a pylon on the high ground and straight up sent those two stalkers immediately there. Depths can't really fight stalkers in the open field. They don't have the range, they don't have the damage, so easy pickings for MaNa.
That was really cute attempt by Goblin at saving his one adept, but not working this time around, sadly.
And he's still building a depth, which I find curious. He's going to go up to 5. But MaNa rallying his stalkers out. He wants to take down that pylon to limit the use of this Stargate, right? That would be the weakness of having it out on the map like this. And he's going to try to body block with the Adepts. They don't have the range, but of course with the Shade, they have mobility. But with 2 more Stalkers showing up, it's going to become increasingly difficult. Stalkers 6 range, Adept 4. And once he runs away here, I mean, 2 Phoenix will not be able to save the Stargate from the Stalkers. So Goblin is going to have to think about what he wants to do next. Thus far, it's a robotics facility and a shield battery.
Yeah, this is such a ballsy and such a great move from MaNa to move out on the map against a proxy Stargate that he scouted, right? And I mean, I don't think Goblin was expecting this, and it's looking very, very difficult to hold at this point. A sentry could help, though. There is the battery overcharge, perhaps gonna come into play? No.
And there he goes, warps back home. And of course, with the shield battery Adepts, 2 of them one-shot probes, so the battery itself doesn't end up helping.
That was 6 probes, so actually that was amazing. That was amazing for Goblin. We didn't catch that right off the bat, but I think that more or less equalizes the game. That's the damage that the potential Oracle that he never made was meant to do.
Yeah, no, that's pretty fantastic. And the Adepts will eventually get grabbed, but I mean, in PvP, Adepts are not really like the unit, you know, like they have the early game place in terms of like punishing people who don't have units or a wall. And of course they can kill probes very efficiently, but because of that range and whatnot, they usually fall apart when they're up against, you know, bigger or beefier forces like the Zealot, Archon, Immortal. Sometimes you'll see people do Adept memes. I think it might have been a Rockfire or someone did some meme Adept stuff in EPT last week, but it didn't really end up being all that fantastic. So you kind of have to get the jump on somebody with it. But otherwise, He's got a lot of stalkers out on the map. He has blink finishing up now, so the micro capabilities are going to make it very difficult, I think, to handle for a little bit for Goblin. If he makes one mistake, he could lose everything.
Yeah, this.
While trying to kill a pro, by the way.
Oh, there's the blink. So MaNa being very cautious not to go up that ramp until that's finished. And that is going to make it so that Goblin is going to be spending his force fields. And he's on a little bit of a timer. Luckily for him, MaNa has not used his map control to take a base yet.
You know, yeah, that's actually about to ask you, because he just warped in 3 more stalkers. But you know, and he actually overcharges the shield battery. But I was going to say the Phoenix energy is being spent too. So I feel like it shouldn't be that hard for him to try and like soft contain with the blink stalkers on the ramp while he builds the Nexus, because I don't even know if the Phoenix have enough energy to deny him sending a pro down, you know, to build it, right?
I don't think so. No, yeah, I don't think the Phoenixes are the problem, right? Like, you just send 3 probes if that was the problem, because they're gonna do damage and lift off stuff no matter what. So yeah, I completely agree with you. If he's gonna drop a Nexus at some point, I feel like he should have already. This is a little bit more than a soft contain, but it's not anything that's ever gonna break him. There's the Nexus, so he could have done this Nexus instead of the last warp in.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, and it kind of becomes like more of a committed hard contain with that. But the warp prism is done.
He could have the same exact number of stalkers now. At that point.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's true. Yeah, he could have just gotten Nexus a little bit earlier. With this type of wall off as well, like something valuable needed to die for Goblin to leave his base. And he has to warp in 2 pylons as well, so his warp in's delayed just a smidge.
Yeah, definitely. So I think I don't dislike this too much from Goblin, because I think that MaNa really didn't make use of his map control as well as he could have. We're talking about 1 warp in, but maybe he could have even done this earlier, right? And continue to reinforce, and he would have 2 working Nexi right now. So Goblin now pushing out with a very scary force, and MaNa's gonna have to do something about it. Will he even let the Nexus finish?
It'd be a difficult push to stop, right? And that's what I'm thinking, because does he have the shield batteries there? The energy for overcharge is going to be something very important, but like, is that even enough against this much stuff? Like, is the super battery powerful enough to deal with this? Like, I don't even know.
I don't know. I mean, it's 3 immortals, so we're talking about super battery versus immortals, like Goku versus Cell level 3. You know, the final Cell. Very difficult to know. I'm gonna go.
Goku could not beat Perfect Cell on his own in the first time around, Cat.
No, but this is 3 Gokus. 3 Gokus. So
3 Gokus. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, you lost me. Yeah. I can't keep up with this level of meme magic here. I'm sorry. This is a massive push coming his way. Like, the Stalkers have tried to buy time.
The sentries in the back. Yeah, they will get picked off. So very nice job by MaNa. That's the best he could get out of that. But again, 3 immortals.
I think you have to snipe this prism if you want to be able to beat this too, which is part of the problem.
Yeah.
If you blink on it, you're going to lose all of those stalkers. So how do you walk close enough to it to be able to snipe it and then blink away, right?
Well, you have the observer. That's the good thing. The observer, but not for long. Here's the observer of Goblin, and he has the positioning at the moment.
MaNa got a lot of surprise ults out, actually. Decent force fields. He does blink back. He grabs the warp prism. And actually, those force fields also limit how many units can try to shoot at the stalkers at the same time. So not terribly handled. The reinforcements are no longer on the table for Goblin. And that's MaNa just showing some expertise in being able to pick fights. Very well done. Wow, yeah, he forced them into an all-in, like, wow.
Super cautious. I would have loved to see Goblin. I think one of the force fields missed, so the Zealots were still trickling in. If he could have force fielded the Zealots off and maybe had an easier time fighting just the Stalkers with the Immortals, maybe he stood a better chance. All in all, MaNa, nice job with the Scout early on, and I think it was always going to be a difficult game for Goblin. He did good.
Yeah. It's just very well done there. And that's kind of that like experience showing MaNa basically able to bully Goblin into a position where he's like, yes, come attack me. And, you know, we're talking about how hard it is to just do stuff with Stalkers while he's got this train of Immortals and very powerful units coming forward. But I think, you know, at the end of the day, the real clutch there was MaNa did all of that, and he got like 15 charge lots. Like, he got charged, and he was able to spread that army out with a few shield batteries, and his force fields in the middle of that army. Like, the only way he could reposition his units was the prism, and then it just timed it to the moment where he had to lift units up, and that was when he blinked. He didn't have the control of the units to try and deny the snipe on that prism, and MaNa just playing extremely well for game number 1.
Yeah, that's an extremely good thing to point here and bring to light, is that MaNa waited for the prism to be loaded. So the only action for Goblin to make at that point was to unload whatever was in the prism or lose it, right? So for MaNa, it's a good case scenario regardless. Really well done by him.
Yeah. So let's see, Everdream. Any thoughts on Everdream for PVZ? I feel like this map you have a little bit easier third to take on like the high ground, or at least the low ground third base is very close to the other high ground that you can kind of hold that position from PVZ wise.
I have no idea. If I was a Protoss on this map, I would take the Rich Vespingeister. That's all I know.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, the last game that we saw on this map had that quick Rich Vespine taken for a slightly different.
If Bly was Protoss, he would also take.
It was a Bly build. I was gonna say he probably do it against Bly as well.
Yeah.
All right. Interested to see how this match moves forward. We're gonna have the up and comer tie things up here. We are loaded in to Everdream as we jump in to game number 2 of this best of 3. In the top right, we have the red Protoss player representing Team Liquid and leading 1-0. He is MaNa.
Long outro, wow. And I hope the music is just as good for this guy band, so tune up your instruments for Team Rotti's Goblin! Thank you. Should we have a name for the band driver?
You know, what's a good band driver name? Like we got to assume this is the person on the synth, right? What's like the name for somebody that DJs that does that kind of stuff?
It depends on where you're from, right? In Peru, it would probably be something like Pedro, right?
Yeah, I guess it's a little too regional. What's the name of a Swedish? If it's DreamHack, what's the name of like a Swedish DJ? There's a lot of those out there.
Oh, I like that.
This couldn't be difficult, right? I don't know. I don't know. I just go back to my favorite, the favorite name of one of my favorite Swedes. We could call him a Pontus. We've got Pontus over here mixing. Yeah, that's a very Swedish name.
I like it.
There you go. We got Pontus the DJ up on here every time we introduce the players. Don't worry, guys. We got your backs.
Hells yeah. And we see a scout, 2 probes, not usually being trailed like this. MaNa's gonna realize it. He was being led astray. Maybe. Oh, this is what MaNa was scared of. Goblin 500 IQ, right? He led the probe of MaNa with his first probe, and it's the second one that's doing the tricky thing. Now, I was wondering why MaNa would chase that probe for so long.
Yeah, that is. I mean, it's like there's a couple of things that you look for with the probe scout in PvP. Like, for example, MaNa immediately sees there's one pylon, right? Mm-hmm. Like, for the number of workers that you would want to have on one base to even fully saturate it, you need to have the other pylon. Otherwise, you can't build anything out of your gateways. Right. So for the gateways to be warping units in, it has to have a second pylon somewhere. So it's either hidden outside your own base or like in your third, or it's over here, as we see in this game, for the proxy that Goblin's doing, and it's going to be a proxy robotics facility.
Yeah, that was beautifully explained, and we're going to see this proxy row, which is kind of like the most standard proxy, I think, in PvP, but Goblin did just go for a Stargate last game, so definitely not out of the cards, and MaNa has to worry about that. He's scouting for it, and potentially looks like doing his own treacherous magic.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a scary situation, though, because starting it now means it has to be later than whatever Goblin was doing. So if it's just a pylon for like future harass, cool. If it's a gateway at that pylon, I get it for a counterattack, possibly with like, if he wants to try and counterattack after he defends or while there's like a siege of immortals outside of his base. But I don't know how much he'd be able to do with trying to throw a Stargate or something down over there. But I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Talked about the adept memes, and they might be showing up in full force, but the pylon there is fully blocking already the wall off. So not going to work against Goblin. A lot of the time what happens with this type of adept pressure is there's a probe ready to make a pylon, and then you snipe the pylon or the shield battery as it starts building, right? Because it just started building. But Goblin already had a finished pylon, so instead...
Look how fast he goes up MaNa's ramp, too. One of the Stalkers does get punished for that. He kills a pylon and cancels a Nexus, but here comes the Prism now.
Yeah, a little bit off-timed, the Prism.
So he's got his Robo finishes, and he's got a Stargate as well to follow that up. And I do find that quite interesting. If he's going to try to like build a couple of Phoenix to try and deal with the Prism, I don't know, but he's supply blocked from losing that pylon. So whatever it was, it's very delayed and now goes into the main base.
Beautiful.
Snipes the pylon, powering 2 gateways.
He's going for the third
battery.
pylon.
He does. Forces the cancel, but still not having anything there. That hurts. That's a supply block from MaNa. He's only got 2 available supply at the moment, but then that's also, you know, just slowing down the warp gate cycles. Although I guess at this point,
to look at a screen full of units and do what Goblin just did. But I mean, really, Adepts don't do that much damage, and there's only 1 or 2 anti-air units for the Warp Prism. So beautiful job sniping those pylons and losing barely any real HP on the units.
Yeah, it's I mean, this is one of the reasons why like PvP can be so stressful to play, right? There's all these technical moments, and sometimes like when Immortals get dropped in your base, you're just not going to be able to save that pylon no matter what you do, and you have to be ready to bounce back after that, because typically like a Robo is such a crucial piece of tech that you're not really looking forward to having to rebuild it in your main base if your attack gets shut down, right? Like you just won't have any time to build something that could stop a counter from MaNa, which is why it's all about that defense. And I guess that's why he's getting the Phoenix too, because it's a way to spend his money without having to use those warp-ins on units that may not be as useful.
Yeah, there's a lot of forced crisis management or something of the sort. And I think that part of why he made the Stargate also is because he made so many Adepts that he has the extra gas, right? Whereas normally if you make Stalkers, you don't really have the means to spend on double tech.
Yeah. And then there's this awkward thing that always ends up happening too, because your gateways are at the front and you're like, well, you can't really push them without getting force fielded. So if you don't have a Prism ready to save your forces that get grabbed, there's really nothing you can do to save these gateways, which is another reason why I like the Stargate.
Yeah, that's another reason I like the positioning also for Goblin, keeping the Prism both ready to warp in and to lift up units near the ramp. He has to continue to be careful. 3 Phoenixes on the side of Goblin will be able to one-shot probes, actually, so pretty nice. But now it's his turn.
Okay, so he drops the force field as the Adepts shade up the ramp. Pylon, shield battery overcharge being activated to keep the units alive that these Adepts are trying to kill. He's not going to get too much done there, but I think worth mentioning, Paolo, as this shield battery overcharge effect ends, there is a 60-second global cooldown on it. I think he just sniped the Observer, very nicely done. But he will not be able to overcharge that battery again for a little bit, and he'll also need the energy for it as well.
Yeah, but the Phoenixes are back at the same time. This was a really strange decision to make. Like, it was a good decision, I think, for Goblin, right? Sees the Phoenix on the other side. He thinks, okay, I'm gonna go in. My Prism has less opposition. I can micro my units in. But MaNa with the perfect, very fast force field, which makes it so that Goblin would have had to ferry each one or all of his units at once. And then the battery overcharge on top of it. So he ends up retreating from what looked like something that he had decided already to commit to, like, pretty heavily. So really awkward. I'm not sure, like, what the right call was there. Really good moves by MaNa overall.
Yeah, no, this control has been really good too, because part of the problem is you're trying to invest all this, you're trying to make this happen, and oh my god, cats. Okay, well, what kind of weird contain? Do you see the base he just took? Okay, so he's trying to make a push work at the same time, but the cats, I think we already went over several reasons why that base is so hard to take versus ranged units, of which Protoss has many.
But he has a campaign going.
Yeah, I guess.
Campaign going.
At what point does MaNa say screw it and just try to stick the Prism?
Pretty soon. Now?
Oh, there you go. I guess he wants the sentries first.
Yeah,
take Guardian Shield off the table. Take Force Fields off the table. Oh, he's just going to kill the anti-air too. That makes sense as well.
He's going to kill all of it, yeah.
There you go.
All dead.
Well, that's one way to do it, I guess. I'm like, I don't know why he'd have to suicide through the Stalkers. There's only 2 of them. Never mind.
Oh, yeah.
He's got this in the bag.
Wow. Well, that was anticlimactic.
Oh, he does get the Adepts into the main. I don't know that that's going to turn everything around here. I feel like MaNa could fall on. MaNa's going to lean pretty heavily on that A key on his keyboard in the next 45 seconds or so.
I think
once he deals with this.
Would be very difficult to lose from here. Very nice moves from MaNa. Great patience. And also moving the Phoenix out on the map when he felt like